Hey, what's going on, everybody? We're coming to you live with a bonus episode of the Club and Sub podcast. We're going to be doing a recap from UFC Las Vegas. That's Woodley versus Burns. We'll be doing these, I think, a lot going forward. Whether we do these on Monday consistently, after fights condition, or on Sundays, we'll see. But yeah, we'll be doing this just to kind of shorten the time on the normal pod, which we'll also have coming to you on Wednesday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern this week, and then you'll be able to find on my YouTube channel all week. So with that, as usual, you have me, John Targaryen, MMA. You can find me on Twitter at MMA Fox. I'm here with Farm with Reality Betting. You can find him at SWR_betting with Danny Lags. You can find at Lags_the capper. And with me, you can find on Twitter at CHanson10. So before we get into it, just got a quick message from Luke.
Yeah, so kind of proud to announce I joined the team over at Squares and Sharps last week. They're a sports betting lifestyle brand that donates 1% of all of their profits to charity. They also have some pretty sick MMA merch as well. Just today, we launched a giveaway that we're doing for UFC 250. You can head over to my Twitter. That's SWR_betting. You can find all the details in the pinned tweet on my profile. And just to note, there has been some confusion. You can enter both giveaways. You're not limited to just one. So be sure to read through the details on that. And if you're lucky enough to win, props to you. Congrats. If not, you can still head over there. That's squaresandsharps.com. You can use my promo code SWR2020 for 15% off your whole order and free shipping as well. Give them a check out, guys. They got some really cool stuff.
Thanks, Luke. And so, you can check that out again on Luke's Twitter right now, which is at SWR_betting. So with that, we'll get into this card, or last week's card. So first fight of the night was Vincent Morales against Chris Gutierrez. Luke, since you're, I think, the only one who made money on this fight, I'll let you take that away. Any thoughts on the fight, how it played out?
Yeah, I think it was probably one of my better reads of the night, I would say. Kind of as we touched on in the show last week, it wasn't a fight I was originally looking to target, but as soon as Gutierrez got down to even money, I saw some pretty good value there, a nice little 10% take. So I ended up putting 1.5 units on him to cash for 1.42 units. I guess my big thing with that fight, which we talked about again on the pod last week, was I wasn't convinced that we were going to see that really aggressive Omar Morales, what I thought would have probably been his best path to victory there if he could make it a bit more of a dogfight. But in turn, I wasn't convinced we would see that, and largely how the fight played out, I kind of assumed that we were going to see a more hesitant Morales. And yeah, it definitely was not a smart game plan on his part to stay on the outside against a point fighter like Gutierrez. So, that was probably one of my better reads of the night. I was happy to cash on that one.
Lags, got anything here?
Yeah, nothing. No plays here. Nothing to say here.
So I actually played Morales for 2 units here. I capped him at -150, which I think pretty clearly was bad. I just kind of operate under the assumption, they quoted it on the broadcast, but you very rarely, only 9 times in history before that a guy's been finished by leg kicks. And, there's generally a reason for that, because when guys start getting kicked in the legs, generally they'll either start checking them or they'll step into the pocket or shoot a takedown, something like that. And, Morales had his good wrestling. He's got good boxing. And so, I figured it might start that way early with him eating a couple big leg kicks. But I figured as soon as they started really hurting him, he'd move into the pocket. And at that point, he'd probably take over the fight. Apparently, he doesn't care if he can't walk for a month. So he just sat at the outside, got finished, and collected his paycheck. So that was fun. Probably my worst read of the night, in a night where I lost many. See, you have any opinion on this fight?
I played Morales by knockout. I guess, Lopez fight didn't check leg kicks, so I don't really know, I guess, why I thought that he would check leg kicks against a better kicker. Just didn't happen. thought maybe he'd, get in the pocket and just win those exchanges because Gutierrez has no hands, only kicks, and yeah, he just got nuked by leg kicks. Pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, but see, that's why I thought he would check kicks at some point. Like you would I got that he didn't check him in the Lopez fight, but when you have a guy with good leg kicks, you don't just generally assume the guy's going to continue to not throw on the outside. But yeah, it was incredible. Anyway,
I did have the under.
Did you hit it? See,
I think it was the under 2.5.
So,
He cut
1
out,
for
I
1
think.
so far.
So the second fight we had of the night was Casey Kenny, Louis Smolka. I had Smolka here. Luke, I know you did too. We talked about it briefly on Twitter. I don't think it. I do actually think it was likely, a good bet at the line where it was. He was more reckless than I expected, but I really think, Kenny looked like he was starting to fade a bit already. And like if he gets through that first round, I really think he probably takes over that fight. As it was, he landed. What did he land? 20 significant strikes in 3 minutes. There's no way Kenny had the cardio to keep up with that kind of volume. So I mean, he got clipped and it happens, but I can't be too upset about it. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, so I guess I kind of took more of a glasses half empty approach post fight, mainly just because it was not how I saw it playing out at all. I did not see Casey Kenny finishing him, but I mean, to your point, he was doing a lot of good body work that probably would have really added up, assuming if that fight was extended. But what I didn't like is that he wasn't really setting any of it up. He just kept going to the well, and even though he was landing those body strikes, he was getting hit with at least 2 or 3 punches by Kenny on the when he came in. So I thought he might want to just actually play more of the range game with Kenny. I thought that's from a striking perspective rather than try to get in these gritty pocket exchanges. So I was pretty wrong on that. And then we obviously really didn't see any grappling, which I thought was going to play a big component in this fight. So, I mean, like you said, maybe if it was extended, we might be singing a different tune here, but at the end of the day, he lived up to the line. I mean, so I'm still going to chalk it up as a not good bet on my part. But
Legs, how about you?
Yeah, I didn't have any plays here. I thought Kenny was going to win a decision here, similar to what Luke was saying. I didn't expect to finish here, especially not a sub, especially that quick. But yeah, similar to what Luke was saying, also with Smoke still on the outside, I definitely thought that would have been a smarter game plan, but is what it is. But yeah, no read for me. I'm not really still not sold on Kenny, I think, completely, but I'd like to see his next matchup.
See, how about you?
I played Smoke round 3. Would have definitely liked to see it go a little bit further. I think that's kind of where he gasses, and Smoke was really working the body. Would have liked to seen what it was like if they grappled. But yeah, I mean, Casey justifies his line, I guess, in a sense. But yeah, I mean, he's, at 135, he's like a tweener, man. 125, 135. I don't really know what he is. So, I don't think he's going too far at 135, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. The thing is, and we talked about it, and Luke, you pointed this out, and I think you did too. I think Kenny's really, he's like the epitome of a well-rounded fighter, like the jack of all trades, master of none. There's nowhere that you'd say he's really bad. I just don't think he's got the skills long-term to really, compete with top 15, 20 guys on a fight-in, fight-out basis. One-dimensional grapplers, yeah, but anybody with a well-rounded striking grappling game, I think he's going to struggle with. Anyway, the next fight of the night, and this one, Tim Elliott and Brendan Royval. I had 3.5 units on Elliott here. I lost it. I actually think this could bring us into, after I think me and C get out of the way what needs to be said. I think we could have a pretty interesting conversation here about value in general. But so obviously, in hindsight, after the fight ended, there's no question in hindsight that, Elliott was not value at minus 170. But given like how the fight played out for the first 6 minutes, like I can't kick myself for making a bet. Like it pretty much went exactly as I thought it would. Royval really, he didn't have much room in the striking. He was getting badly out grappled, and then Elliott gassed, and that really just wasn't in the tape for me. And before I get into the value conversation, I know you have some talk here, so take it away.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched it. I mean, I'm not going to beat myself up over this. Had a couple units on Elliott. Honestly, I think if you watched everything, we all have the same information available. So, like, the line on Royval, even afterwards, like, I don't really think it was justified. I mean, like, Royval said it himself, he was getting dominated until he gassed. Like, literally right after the interview, he's like, it wasn't a good performance. Pretty much got him because he gassed. Like, Elliott was doing everything I thought, getting takedowns, dominating those exchanges, outside of maybe the last 10 seconds of round one where he, like, kind of got his arm caught. But outside of that, I mean, he was doing exactly what I thought Tim Elliott would do and what he normally does. Like, he's pretty consistent on shooting takedowns, and Royval sucks. No takedown defense. And then there's like this other phase where like everybody who bet Royval thinks like this guy needs to quit his day job and focus on this like full time, which, I mean, I personally wouldn't encourage it. But if, he could get the extra training in, that's fine. But there's really not many guys at 125 that he's going to beat. And he's honestly, I mean, outside of these finishes, right, he's not going to really win minutes ever in the UFC. And I know people think, like, this was an amazing bet. But, like, honestly, if you played him money line, like, you really didn't know what you were doing. Like, it's not really, like debatable to me. Like, you either should have played him inside the distance or by sub, which we talked about earlier. Like, those are, like, low percentage plays, and they hit. But, like, your money line, like, the guy had to win within the distance, and still, nobody had any, justification on how Royval would win minutes outside of, he's going to sub Tim Elliott, this and that. So if you bet Royval, like, yeah, I guess, but you make that bet 100 times, you're not really making any money. So whatever.
Yeah, and so I wanted to kind of pivot that and get both of your opinions, Luke and Wags, on this. But so like we see this, kind of see touched on it a bit. And to some extent, I think I get it because, there's obviously people who sell picks and you're not going to go out there and say, look, I made a bad bet that you paid me for. But, like, I've seen people say, and, people both in our group chat and outside of it, there's a winning bet's never a bad bet and no losing bet's a good bet. And I personally, like, I strongly agree with that. I actually think you're trying to evaluate your game and get better. Like, understanding when you made a swing and start bet's pretty important. So, I mean, like, do you have any, like, opinion on that?
Yeah, no, you touched on it pretty much completely. Yeah, I think if you think you have value in your own bet, then you have value in your own bet. I mean, if depending on where the line is at, I guess you can justify like how like wide of a line is. But if you think you have value, then I think you have value. So, I mean, I'm not going to fault you guys for playing Elliott. I think that was definitely the right side if we were picking a side. I played the fight doesn't go to decision.
Well, that was
so. I had that in the 3-leg parlay, so I had that. So that hit. So yeah.
Well, I'm more thinking your opinion on like can you make a good bet that's a losing bet and a bad bet that's
yes. No, I agree. No, 100%. No, 100%. I agree that even if it's a losing bet, you could definitely have a good bet. And same with a winning bet is definitely you could definitely have a bad bet.
And I don't even think this was a particularly good bet because obviously Elliott didn't justify the line in hindsight. But like, right. I think it's important. Luke, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so I've always been pretty strong in that same mindset that just because the bet cashes, that does not mean it's a good bet, and just because it loses, that doesn't mean it's a bad bet. So, like, to me, it really all comes down to like, one, how did you cap it, and like how did you see it playing out? Were there a lot of similarities to how you saw it play out? And then maybe like that one thing that you took into account happened, or there was maybe one thing that you didn't take into account that happened. So I think you kind of, it's more of a gray area in my opinion. And it really comes down to if you're just winning long-term, because I mean, if you're constantly saying, well, and I'm not saying you, John, I'm just saying, I'm saying it, if you're constantly saying that, okay, well, I had the value side, but if you're constantly losing, well, you obviously didn't have the value side. So I think that's really where it all comes down to. But in terms of this fight, similar to Lags, I also had the fight doesn't go to decision. I put 1 unit on that at plus 145. I got in on that one pretty early. It actually flipped to minus 150 at one point and then got back down. I think it closed right around even or slight favorite money. But so I'm not saying that Elliott wasn't the right side, but I will say pre-fight, this is probably another one I had a really good read on, and why I wasn't trying to lay chalk on Elliott is not because necessarily I thought he would gas. The fight IQ with him has always been a question to me, and he's just a guy I personally, at this point in his career, I can't back at chalk. And, Royval, similar to what C said, I think he's going to have trouble winning rounds, especially against top 15 flyweights who are much faster, much better in the wrestling, much better in the scramble. But honestly, when he subbed Elliott, I wasn't surprised at all. So that's also not to say that I think Royval was like a super solid. In my opinion, I don't think any side there was a good bet. I think, and that's not to put my bet over, but I guess would put themselves in really poor positions, and I just did not see this going 15 minutes. So
I just want to clarify. I guess this is what I want to say. Royval's, even after the fact that if you bet him straight on your money line, he didn't win any. Like, he didn't even have like a minute and a half of good work in this fight, right? I mean, he was basically dependent on Elliott gassing, and then that happened.
Right.
So, like, if you bet Royval money line, you didn't really have any justification other than him getting a finish. So it didn't even make sense. You might have well just bet inside the distance, right? I mean, that's where the value was. So, and even after the fact, people like struggle, like, everyone's comment afterwards is, oh yeah, easy work. Royval subbed him. And then they forget like the last 6.5 minutes of the fight was him getting his ass kicked. So it doesn't even like logically make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like where I'm coming from too. Like, I don't think the Elliott bet was a good bet, even in hindsight, clearly. And honestly, that's something I've struggled a bit myself with my own capping, is how do you cap unknowns? Like, I haven't seen Elliott gas before, but probably something, when I capped him at 300, that maybe is an outcome I should have factored in a bit. And I wouldn't say it's a good bet, but I mean, I agree with C. It's like, you can't, if you watch Royval, if you watch that fight, knowing Elliott was going to gas there, I'd probably cap it exactly where it closed, honestly, because Elliott was probably going to win the second round if he had reversed that submission. Like, that's what's probably going to happen. So it's like, I don't think there was a good bet on either side. I mean, the best bet's the bet you guys made, obviously, especially at plus 145 is a great number.
I think.
Sorry.
Sorry. One last thing. I think another thing to think when capping too is if you think there's value, but there's something in question with the fighter. Like, I think in Elliott, like Luke touched on, is the IQ, is fighter IQ, not necessarily like we were talking about the gassing, just IQ. Is why I just don't think I could touch him at this side, even though I think he was the right side.
No, that's a fair point. And he ended up on his back because he pulled the guillotine out of top position. It's like that really was the beginning of the end for him. So it's and that's a very fair point. So the next fight this is a fun one, and this one had a bit of Twitter controversy, not amongst us, fortunately, but around it as well. And it's Jamal Hill and Klidson Abreu, and Abreu was knocked out minute and 51 seconds. Personally, I really don't think we learned much about either guy in this fight at all, to be honest with you. That's my take. Like, I saw a lot of people yelling how good the value was on Jamal Hill, and then also how there was no value on Hill and it was random. I kind of lean more in the random camp here. Just don't think, we never saw Hill grapple or Abreu grapple. I mean, the fight lasted a minute and 50 seconds and he got starched. Lags, any opinion here?
Yeah, similar to what you said. I think we didn't learn much here. In that 3-leg parlay, I had a fight doesn't go to decision here also. But similar. I don't think at -175 he definitely couldn't have touched Hill. But I think at the closing line, I definitely think there was like value on him.
Agreed. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, this is another interesting one, just because, like, as you both touched on from like a capping perspective, it sucks because I don't think we learned enough about Jamal Hill. So hypothetically, if he gets another matchup against a grappling heavy guy, it's like, I guess, how do you really take? I mean, there's not much you can take away from that. So in terms of like which side was the right side, this is another one where I don't like the people saying that like Jamal Hill was like this particularly sharp play. It's one of those situations where in this particular instance, it cashed. So I guess that's all that matters.
It looked like
we didn't see the whole what the pre-fight narrative was supposed to be. You can't fault Jamal Hill for knocking the guy out soon, but I'm speaking solely from a betting perspective. We didn't see what that potential path to victory for Klidson Abreu was that literally everybody was saying. I guarantee you, anybody who even bet Jamal Hill still had in the back of their mind what happens if Klidson Abreu gets on top of him.
Yeah.
So it's another one of those funky ones where going forward, if he faces another grappling heavy guy, I'm probably just going to pass again. I was looking to bet Abreu when he was like +150, +140, but I couldn't get the price. So I'll be fully transparent and say if I was able to get that price, I would have been betting Abreu here, but ultimately didn't. So I passed. But yeah, it's just another one of those funky situations.
See, what do you think?
So I had the under 2.5 in one of my Lambo parlays that we will get into eventually. And I had the under in the Elliott fight. So that's 3 for 3 so far if you're following along. But in this fight in particular, I'd say, okay, first round finishes, like in general, when you don't have that much time, like you don't necessarily really learn anything unless, it's somebody who's like Francis Ngannou and he gets fucking first round finishes every fight. And it's like, okay, the guy has serious power. Outside of that, you don't like necessarily learn all that much. But in terms of justifying like the line, like, yeah, obviously Hill justified his line, right? I mean, it might have been 2 minutes, but he definitely justified the line, stood striking, ripped the body. Abreu just couldn't take the shot. So like, yeah, he justifies his line, but like, you don't necessarily learn anything about him moving forward. Like, it's not like the next fight versus a grappler. You're like, now you have more information on Hill. You just don't. So, like, in a sense, yeah, like he justifies his line, but do you really learn much? I don't know.
Right.
Not
like he
really.
could fight Jimmy Crute next fight, and we'd have like Crute could either look like -250, -300 in that fight, or look like +250. Like that simple. I have really no way of knowing if Hill has made any improvements. Just kind of sucks from that perspective, to be honest.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm looking at the rankings now. So similar to where he's at now, what do you think about him and Paul Craig?
About Jamal Hill and Paul Craig? Yeah. I love that. I love that idea, to be honest with you. He should. I mean, that's kind of a good litmus test to see if he's improved. Craig will pull guard and at least drag him to the mat and see if he's improved down there, if he's competent at least. So I don't mind that. I think that's a pretty good idea.
I'd probably bet Jamal Hill there.
Yeah, I mean,
I think so. I think I would too.
Bet against Paul Craig so many times, and he's burned me so many times. So.
I bet Ankle Live against him.
I think it'd be a good fight. I think it's a good matchup to test him, just like we were saying.
I bet Craig versus that Brazilian guy. I don't know what his name is. The glass guy.
Vinicius?
Yeah.
Vinicius?
Yeah.
The one made of glass.
That was insane. So next fight we had Daniel Rodriguez, Gabe Green. Luke, you made money on this. Any thoughts here?
Yeah, so I had a pretty strong opinion on it pre-fight. I just think Rodriguez was the better fighter overall, and I think he pretty clearly showed that here. However, Green did provide a lot more resistance than I thought he would. I believe the final strike totals were like 174 to like 124. So if you ask me pre-fight, what's that, John?
175, 127.
Yeah, I was close.
Yeah,
but,
that's
I mean, if you told me pre-fight that he was going to land over 100 strikes on Daniel Rodriguez, I probably would have told you you're crazy. Even in my breakdown, I thought Rodriguez was going to be able to finish him. And I'm honestly pretty surprised that Green took some of the shots he did. He took a ton of big shots and just kept moving forward. So I still by no means think Green is an overtly talented fighter, but I definitely give him credit for his toughness and his will and coming in on short notice up a weight class and everything like that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was one of those competitive fights, but with a clear round winner every time. And yeah, so he 30-27'd him. I put 3.5 units on Rodriguez at minus 300 to cash for 1.17 units.
It's a nice cash. Lags, any opinion on this fight?
That's similar. Luke pretty much touched everything. I expected Rodriguez to dominate the fight, and I didn't expect a decision either, but I still expected him to win the fight nonetheless. So.
See you.
Yep.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah, I actually think it was kind of interesting, Luke. You hit this a bit, but if you told me coming in that you could have gotten Green at like plus 250 at one point this week, and he was going to land 100 strikes, I'd have said, okay, I'll just blind bet that. Like that's in a striking match. Striking matches like that are so high variance, but this actually didn't really look that high variance, to be honest. Like I was impressed with Green, but like Rodriguez seemed to pretty cleanly win the vast majority of the exchanges and land harder. Like he looked pretty much like a minus 400, and Green looked like a scrappy output guy. So yeah, good bet. That was it was a fun fight though. Really enjoyed it. Up next, we had the dumpster fire of the night. It was Caitlin Chukagian and Antonina Shevchenko. Anybody have a strong opinion that wants to jump in here first?
Yeah, I guess I'll start.
Yeah, go for it.
Had no place here, but I'll be honest, I don't think any of us expected the performance that we watched. So I thought Shevchenko's takedown defense was, I guess, a little bit better than what we saw. I mean, she clearly got dominated the entire fight. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know where you go for Chukagian here, because another fight with Valentina. It's the same outcome. So I don't know where she goes from here. And Anthony is good on the feet, but takedown defense needs a lot of work. So
yeah, I agree. How about you, Luke?
Yeah, so this is probably another one of those fights where I didn't see any of this on Twitter. I don't even really know anybody that bet Chuk. But this is one of those situations where I don't necessarily think you could say if you did bet Chuk that it was necessarily a sharp bet, because you would have been betting on her to do and show something she's never done before, and she did. That's just complete chance from a handicapping perspective. So, props to Chuk. I don't think anybody saw that coming, or at least it being as dominant as it was. If it was to go the cards, I thought it would go to the cards, and I thought it would be a lot more competitive. So yeah, this is probably my worst read of the night, but then again, a fighter comes out and shows and does something that they've never done before. So I don't think anybody who was backing Shevchenko here or picking her or had a really strong opinion there, I don't think you can beat yourself up too much about it personally, but that's just my take.
Yeah,
like what we were talking about before, like with the value perspective, like if you had Chukagian, do you say that there's value there to see something that we've never seen before?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. This was an MMA is fucked type of fight. That's basically what this was. It's like you guys just said there was literally, on the feet, the brief moments it was there, it played out similarly to what I expected. Shevchenko was a better defensive striker and hits a lot harder, and it looked like that. But there was nothing. And even, I actually, Shevchenko worked up against Roxy every time and actually, at least defended some takedowns in that fight. I didn't think even if Chuk tried to wrestle, she'd have much success. But, I mean, she got her down with ease. Like, I was genuinely shocked. C, did you have any plays here?
Oh, yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, I played Chev, and then, after Elliott lost, I did, one of those bad things that you do and kind of get a little bit more exposure on something you think's a good spot. And as, I was making more exposure, I figured, well, I thought the only way Chuk would win is if she subbed her. So I put equally amount of units on Chuk by sub. So I was like, okay, if she wins and she subs her, I'm still making out like pretty decent here. But yeah, I mean, look, earlier in the week, somebody had mentioned about Chukagan and like asking why she was like a dog. And I kind of made the argument for Chev. And then, they said something that I didn't really agree with, that, Chukagan's a more technical striker, but they did, this person did say, like, I said, Chukagan's never gotten a takedown. And, like, what makes you think that she's going to get a takedown here? And then the guy said, I forget which matchup it was, but it was like the first time Holly Holmes like attempted multiple takedowns, and he's like, she's never gotten a takedown before, but she knew this other girl sucked. Right? And I'm like been thinking about it, and like I guess like if you bet Chuk and that's what you were going for because that she trains with Danaher, her husband's a wrestling coach, like maybe at some point someone who has like the grappling credentials of her would just fucking figure it out that all she needs to do is fucking grapple to win instead of standing up on the feet and looking like a fucking complete bozo. I mean, so if you better like props, I do think Chev like in a straight kickboxing match is easily like minus 200, but obviously that wasn't the case here. So
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, weird fight, but on to the next one. Another pretty weird fight. We had Hannah Cifers, Mackenzie Dern, and personally here, like Dern just more than justified her line. Like it was pretty clear, I mean, once she went to the mat and was near Cifers' leg, that Cifers just didn't know what she was doing, and Dern obviously is probably the best women's submission grappler in the UFC. But despite the fact that she probably justified her line, like she is like full. To be honest, I have two thoughts here. First of all, she's like almost full fade material going forward. Dern, like her striking is not good, and her wrestling is woefully awful. And the second thought I have is like, I don't want to make you scared, Luke, because I know you played her against Van Dijk coming up, but it does make me question a little bit, like how much. Are we overrating Ribas a little bit? Like this is like Dern is like really has not looked good when she can't get a fight to the mat. Like she looked like Hannah Cifers looked like a world class striker against her in there. So just like I don't know if that's the case or not, but it was just something to think about because like when Dern fights any kind of decent defensive grappler, she's pretty much a dumpster fire. I think. Luke, what do you think?
Well, I guess we'll save the Ribas breakdown. We might get into it a month down the line, but we'll sidebar that one. But yeah, this one was pretty much what I expected. I actually thought that Hannah Cifers would provide the resistance she did up front. I didn't think it was going to be like the very first shot Dern takes, she's going to get her down. I figured that Cifers would have some early pocket success. But yeah, I mean, like you said, her takedowns are sloppy or whatever, but she's just so like relentless with them and just uses her strength essentially to largely get girls down. And yeah, I knew as soon as this one hit the floor, it was done. So definitely not like some sharp read, but yeah, I had Dern in the first round. I didn't bet it. I was pretty close. I think I saw the sub prop on FanDuel for I think plus 100 at one point. And of course I couldn't bet it. You guys know how mad and how many bets I've missed the last month because of that. No FanDuel, but yeah, it played out how I thought it would.
Yeah, KO sub was actually minus 165 day of for Dern, which I'm kind of kicking myself for not hitting. Lags, do you have anything here?
Nah, similar to what Luke said. But one of my Lambo parlays I actually had Dern by sub or decision at minus 290. That was available on FanDuel. So yeah, I mean, like we said, favorite material going forward. She's not great on the feet, but I think Rebos is still pretty good. I'm pretty confident that she does get it done. But
I am too, but it just planting the seed. It's
I don't think I'm questioning it.
Just planting the seed before I come for another one of your prospect flags. It's
Unbelievable.
See, how about you? Anything here?
Yeah, so this is one of the only ones I got fucking right for the night. But yeah, I mean, this under 1.5 was in the Lambo, so that makes us 4-4. But yeah, I mean, mostly, you know, kind of like I said, like if you're playing Dern, you basically had to play round 1 inside the distance and under 1.5 to, you know, and that's did. And basically, yeah, I mean, if that fight goes into the second round, I'm probably just like live betting ciphers because I just kind of think she was bombing away on Dern. She could strike. And I actually think ciphers, I'd have to like rewatch this, but I think she did something like dumb as shit. Dern was on the chance to kind of stand up, and then she just like kind of like got back down into Dern's guard, and I was really confused why she was doing that. But yeah, you know, if you played Dern, there was only like 2 or 3 bets you could make, and instead, you know, some people don't understand win conditions and how to justify, you know, those lines. So if you played her like money line, like okay, I don't know why you wouldn't have just played like ITD or round 1. So
Yeah,
but yeah, I think she's fade material going forward. Her wrestling's shit, and I even said that. I mean, it's like her offensive wrestling is terrible, so it wouldn't have surprised me if, you know, ciphers won a decision just because Dern sucks at wrestling.
Yeah, it's like ciphers looked like she means like you said, like she had her way out, and I think she for like a split second was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go in and land ground and pound," and then started to, and then she was, and then it was over. That was the beginning of the end. Next fight we had Roosevelt Roberts and Brock Weaver. I played Brock plus 230. Obviously not a good bet. I mean, the first round was somewhat competitive, but clearly a Roberts round. In hindsight, like I don't think Roberts was a minus 400, but I think he was probably justified around minus 300, to be honest. And I think I had kind of poo-pooed some of the takes on Brock because I thought the Vargas fight was a little overrated. And I mean, if you're just going to go in there and you're not even going to attempt like a single or a double leg against the fence and try to hold him there against the guy who really is struggling to defend takedowns, then I don't really know what you're doing. He's probably not long for this promotion, to be honest. So, yeah, horrible bet by me. Only lost the unit, but Lags, how about you? I know you had a player.
Yep. So I had 2 units on parlay with Sean O'Malley and Roosevelt Roberts here. So first leg cashed here. Similar breakdown to what I thought was going to happen. I think that Brock was only going to have success grinding him up against the cage, and that was about it. I think, to be honest, I think he had a dominant first round and then finished it in the second round.
Yeah, that makes sense. Luke, any opinion?
Yeah, so I did give Weaver a little bit more credit. We talked about that on the pod last week. Honestly, I think early he didn't look bad.
Yeah,
given what the line was. I mean, he came at him early, like Lag said. You know, he got some gritty exchanges against the cage, which I was like, good. At least he's doing what he needs to do to potentially edge out a decision here. But then, yeah, Roberts just kind of clearly took over after. I think it was just pretty clear who the better fighter was there. So, yeah, nothing too shocking on my part.
See, how about you? Any opinion on this fight?
So we're feeling good here. We have the under 2.5 in the Lambo. We're 5 for 5. We're feeling real good on this one. We got one left, and we'll get to that soon. But on this one, honestly, I think Weaver, he kind of, you know, I know he was looking for that cage push a little bit and got himself against the fence. But honestly, I think if he would have just kind of used his moments to really just pressure Roberts, it could have been a different fight. I don't think, honestly, going forward, like if you get somebody who is just going that you know is going to just pressure the shit out of Roberts, like I would just think you should just stab him. I really think this guy's going to fold to pressure in time. I know he lost to Pichel, but someone who has good, clean boxing and can really just take advantage of those pocket exchanges, I think they're going to work Robert's ass.
Agreed.
And Brock Weaver is not UFC caliber, by the way. And Roosevelt Roberts might be like fringe, top 25 or something, top 20.
Top 30. I agree. Yeah. So next fight, and this was an interesting one for everybody. I was on tilt at this point in the night. I jumped in on a Carlisle ITD and Carlisle in round one, pretty small on each, but I was 3 IPAs in, and I had lost every bet to this point. So, yeah, it was an interesting fight. It was a great fight. How Elliot Royval won fight of the night over this, I'm not, or over Sky Avanoff, I'm not entirely sure, to be totally honest. I personally, I don't know that I'd go as far as to say it's a robbery, but, I've seen a lot of people who said it was clearly Carlisle 1, 2, and 3, and I just don't know how you get there, to be honest. The problem for me with round 2 is, Carlisle got close on a triangle, twice at the end, partially because, or not Carlisle, Quarantillo, but he got close the second time that Carlisle just stuck his head back in there. But Carlisle controlled him for about 3.5 rounds. Quarantillo didn't really come close to finishing round 2, so to, give him the round in a round where he got controlled and didn't land anything really of substance, to me seems I don't know. I just don't know how you do it. Luke, what was your opinion here? And then we'll get to the 2 people with plays here.
Yeah, I didn't have a play on the fight. I did end up picking Carlisle just because I thought at dog money he was probably the value there, being able to make it a gritty, scrappy fight, kind of like he did. But I did actually bet Spike live after round 2 at plus 140. Maybe I wasn't watching it. This is definitely one I'm probably going to have to go back and watch. But, yeah, when I was watching it live, I thought he was clearly up 2 rounds. So I saw plus 140. I'm like, you're going to give me plus 140? And all I have to do is hope he doesn't get finished in the third. I'm like, I'll take a small stab at that. And then they read unanimous the other way. And I was like, I don't think it was a robbery either, but I was really surprised that it wasn't at least a split. I thought there would have been at least one judge that would have gave it to Spike. But yeah, maybe there was something in that second round that I really missed, but I thought Spike edged it 2-1, but probably one I'll have to go back and watch.
Agreed. Legs.
Yeah, well, this was the fight I had the most exposure on. So I had 2 units on Spike at plus 130, and I had 1 unit on the under 2.5. So I definitely think that the under 2.5 had its moments in the fight with Spike gassing and the various sub attempts that we saw. And I thought, like Luke mentioned, that Spike definitely won rounds 1 and 2. 1 was a clear Spike winner. 2, I definitely think that he did win. And then 3, I definitely think Billy won that, but it was not a 10-8 like many people might have been saying. So I think at worst case scenario, this fight should be a draw. I didn't think that Billy won this, but yeah, I don't know. I thought Spike won it clearly. So
yeah, I did.
I mean, I'm not gonna just scream robbery, but I think Spike won it. I thought he won 2-1.
Yeah, it seemed pretty clear to me as well.
Yep.
What about you, C?
All right, so here we go, guys. We're having a bad night. We're down on the scoreboard. We have a little bit of life here, actually, a lot of life. We got what did we have so far? We had the Morales under 2.5, then we had the Elliott under 2.5, Dern under 1.5, Abreu under 2.5, and then I had Weaver under 2.5. So I'm sitting there. Now I had 2 going. That was 1, so I'm on leg 6 of 6, and then the other one I had the Sakai Blagoy over 2.5, and then the Burns over 4.5. So all I really need is this one. Got the under 2.5. Feeling good. Spike comes out like a fucking gingerbread man. I was so pumped. I'm like, finish this motherfucker. Finish him. Finish him. Nothing. Fucker. Fuck. Going to round 2, just praying for this guy to finish. Just finish one time. Fucking the alpha ginger. somehow using his body weight or whatever the hell he's got going on, pushes his way through some submission attempts, and then I got 2.5 minutes left in round 3, and I just get fucked. So, unfortunately, we did not win this. It was very disappointing. I really wasn't watching too much of the fight, to be honest. I don't really remember it all. I was just way too emotionally tied. But you know, I really probably should have just hedged. Like in reality, like I really didn't know I didn't really know how I was gonna hedge anyway, because like both of them were to win 10 grand, and like, you know, it's not every day you could just go get like 5 grand on like an over 2.5. So yeah, you know, I don't know. I'll stay away from that. But yeah, watching like the next 2 fights go like exactly how I thought, like go over and over, I was like, fuck, dude, come on. But yeah, you know, I think Billy Q though is probably like pretty fade-ish going forward. Like I don't really, kind of like I thought before.
Agreed.
Like I don't really know what he does like too well. Like what do you guys think he does well? I honestly don't know.
If Spike doesn't gas there, he finishes that fight.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know what you guys think about this. I actually thought Billy kind of gassed out as well, to be honest with you. Like the big talk about his cardio, but he seemed shot to shit in round 3, to be honest with you. I don't know if you guys have an opinion on that or not, but
definitely kind of maybe looked like it. I don't know. I'd have to rewatch it, to be honest.
I think Spike looked better than I thought he was going to look, to be honest.
I mean,
I didn't, to be honest.
The guy turned body lock. I don't know that I've ever seen that happen at like men's MMA and the UFC before. Like that was crazy. But anyway, so that was a crazy fight. So then we went on to Sakai Ivanov, and I actually had 3 units on the goes distance here, which was the beginning of a nice little turnaround. I believe I was down about 7.5 units at this point in the night.
Wow.
And I hit this one. It was a real – I still to this day don't really – like I remember I was talking to DT in our group chat, and he was talking about like how he thought Ivanov's shin was overrated. And I saw a bunch of people say that. I just could not – you know, whatever you want to say about Tuivasa or Derek Lewis, both of those guys can bang. And like, you know, he took their shots and kept moving forward. So like, I mean, minus 134 seemed like a steal. We'll get into the cage grab after we all go through this, but see, any take on this fight?
Yeah, you know, I think right away I saw that it was like an easy over 2.5. Yeah, I think Black Boy, his chin is just, you know, top tier. Him and Pedro Munoz, whatever the fuck his last name is. 2 guys, fucking invincible chins. And Sakai doesn't really like have power in his hands, so you know I don't really think Blagoy is like necessarily in trouble. Yeah, he probably wins that decision if there's no, you know, if he doesn't have his hands on the cage or whatnot. But yeah, I mean whatever, you know, ugly split decision. So kind of how I thought the fight would go.
Lex, how about you?
Yeah, so I had 2 plays here. I had 1 unit on Sakai at plus 110. I got that the early line on that. And then the second leg of my 1 Lambo parlay, I had the fight goes to decision, similar to you guys. And played out similar to how I thought. I thought it was going to be a close split decision, and then I thought Sakai had more volume and that would able to outpoint him to a decision. But I think, like probably we're going to touch upon that, if they took that point away from the cage grab, that he probably would have lost the fight, I think. So,
Luke, what do you think? What you think of the fight?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty glad I stayed away from this one. Sakai was one of the guys I was considering betting, but it largely played out how I thought it would. I thought this was going to be a split decision kind of fight, and for me to bet Sakai, I would have needed at least plus 122 for consideration. And obviously, we'll get into the cage grab, like you said, but I mean, I think he looked good overall. I think it played out largely how I thought it would, that Blagoy would sit on the back foot. Sakai would come with pressure. Ivanov would land some good counter shots, some good straight shots as well. So, yeah, no real surprises, at least in terms of pre-fight analysis to how it played out.
Yeah, so let's get into the cage grab. So basically, it doesn't really seem like there's kind of a well-established rule in the UFC for like what you do in this situation. So my own personal opinion is there's really two ways that the UFC can go about this, and they went about it in neither way in this fight. One would be award Sakai or Ivanov top position in that situation, which to me seems the most fair because obviously if you take a point from Sakai at that point, he's maxed out of his draw and probably loses. Or take a point. But it seemed, I'm obviously happy, like for you, Lags, that you hit Sakai here. It's happy for all the guys we know who hit Sakai. Right. But it does seem like, that was atrocious. That's as blatant.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, Luke, do you have any opinion on this?
Yeah, I've never reffed MMA, but I did ref hockey for quite a few years. And so obviously there's obviously differences between officiating in every single sport, but I also think that what the refs just do a terrible job of is, like you said, there's just no real defined rules. So like some guys get away with some stuff, some don't. From what I saw, the ref seemed like he was in clear position to see that, and he just decided not to call it. So I guess that begs the question of, is that an automatic point? Do you just award the guy top position then? But I understand from like a viewership standpoint, you don't want to just have refs taking points for like every single little infraction. But I also think that they're way too liberal with it as well. I don't think they take points enough. Like, what's the point of having something in the rule that someone can't do, letting them do it potentially 2, maybe 3 times in a fight before you then take a point? It's like, okay, well, what were those 3 potential instances that could have had a drastic impact on this fight? So I guess I don't have a perfect solution. So maybe I'm just barking up a deaf tree or something, but I think they should take more points than they do personally.
Yeah, I agree. Lags, how about you?
So I guess to continue what Luke was saying, so just real quick, I had a unit on Sky. I happy I cashed it, but I definitely think that played a huge factor in that. But I think they should definitely, like you said, take the points away, but it has to be such a major infraction to affect the entire outcome of the fight. So like that, if Sakai was taken down there, he probably would have been late on the entire round. He probably would have lost the round. Is that fair to say? Probably think. So,
yeah, pretty close.
I don't think Sakai was getting up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I definitely think that, you could have awarded top position, like we said, top position or 1 point. I think just taking the point away and starting the fight a lot quicker would be a thing. But just like Luke was saying, that it has to be such a big enough infraction to like change the outcome so often, or like so many instances like eye pokes or like hands over the cage type of thing.
Yeah, that's really the problem with the 10-point must system, right? It's like if you take a point in a 3-round fight, that's that's crippling. That's really, you basically dominate the fight to win. Like that, it's really, which also kind of sucks. See, do you have an opinion?
But it's his own fault, though.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
That's my thing. Like it's his own fault. He knows he can't grab it, so why do it? So
for sure,
yeah, he's got $50,000 on why he did it.
That is true. That is true.
I guess like in these situations, like I don't think I'm not really a fan of like really deducting a point for really anything, to be honest. It's like that just, I'd rather you get dominant position and let the guy work and see, because to like just give somebody a round for something like that, like I just, I'd much rather see someone just get dominant position and start from there and get like a, advantage. But, if you're giving away basically a round there, in a 3-round fight, like you said, it's pretty hard to, come back from that type of deficit. It's essentially you have to go win 3 rounds, right?
Yeah, literally.
That's it.
Yeah, and just to interject real quick, so I'm not necessarily saying that by them taking a point that's like the best way to do it, but just in the current form, because there's no precedent set for, okay, if this guy does this, he should get this position. I'm just saying that there needs to be something more fun than there is doing, whether that's taking a point or if they end up going to a half-point system or whatever. I'm just saying, I think there's a lot of times that guys do a lot of things that can have a dramatic impact on the fight, and certain refs are notorious for just giving warnings or whatever. It's like if you poke a guy 3 times in the eye, he might not be able to see punches coming from his left side for the next 10 minutes, or the guy trying to take his head off. So,
or the next 10 years, like Stipe, right? I mean, Stipe doesn't even have an eye, but I'd say like in MMA in general, there's just like so much uncertainty around like multiple things, right? I mean, just like scoring and just like reffing too. It's like there's just like some gray areas that like really don't need to be gray. Like, I mean, just like even scoring wise, like I was actually glad to see like Chukagan get like 10-8s. Like I normally like 10-8s. Like there's a lot of times where I'm watching, I'm like, how the fuck is this not a 10-8 when you're just dominating for 5 minutes? Like, what else could you fucking think this is?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, the problem, the real problem is, and I mean, this is a longer conversation that we could be here all night for, but like, when you think about it though, it's that, combat sports, like, the MLB, the NHL, the NBA, they can all just change the rules in an instant. They just need the Players Association to sign on with it. How long did it took the unified rules to be adopted nearly everywhere, and it still hasn't been adopted everywhere in years. So like for them to fundamentally change the scoring, they basically, it's a huge process to come up with that, and then you have to convince every single state and country to adopt those new rules as well. So it's just like it's a mess. And so I mean,
I think the problem is too, there's no clear set on what is and what isn't like a 10-8 round. What is a 10-8 round? What's a 10-9 round? Because I mean, do I think Goy won 30-27? I think that was the one scorecard. Was it that?
Yeah,
was it that card.
Blagoy won.
Blagoy. I think there was somebody else. Yeah, no, because that was DC was commentating back on. That's who I was talking about.
Clearly,
he got a 30. Yeah, it was clearly 29-28. I think you could have scored it for either side.
Right. Round 2 was clearly
there's no way.
Paravanov, yeah.
Right. So there's no way I think you could have scored that 30-27. There's no way.
No, definitely not. It's just there's no consistency, and I've actually done a deep dive on the unified rules and read them because I was curious. And when you read them, there's still no real consistency, or really like it's very vague as to what effective striking, effective grappling actually is, which makes it just makes a judge's job hard, and they have a hard enough time as it is if the rules are specific. Like now we're going to give them vagaries where they can interpret themselves. It's like, what are we really doing here? I do think live scoring is like a must at some point.
And I just want to make a real quick point to John. I think probably this is like the hardcore in me talking, and would probably not be great from a viewership perspective, but I would just like to see them award more rounds as draws, because I feel like we find so many wonky split decisions one way or the other way. It's like, okay, well, if you really can't decipher or determine who wins the round, don't give it to anybody. Like, I feel like I can't say this with certainty, but I feel like sometimes they're just like, fuck it, I don't know who won, I'm going to circle someone's name. And that has a massive impact, obviously, on how the fight can be scored, the outcome. We obviously know we got the win, the show bonus, or the show money, and
career trajectory and stuff like that, too.
For sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at the
I'll say this though, like draws are just like not good for the sport, I guess, in a sense. Like you don't really want to.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't though. It's like Whaley Joanna is a perfect example. I remember we were all chatting in the group chat about it, and basically we had like 7 different people with 7 different scores, and it's like, well, if like nobody can see this clearly, the judges can't see it clearly, the people on the media sites can't see it clearly. It's like, well,
yeah.
You had 3 rounds in that fight that were basically coin flip rounds. Like nobody got knocked down. Nobody had top time. The only thing we had was Joanna's hematoma on her head that was there for 4 rounds. So it's like, what 3, like those 3 rounds should probably all be 10-10s. Like, there's 2 girls just slugging it out in the middle with nobody getting visibly wobbled or anything. So yeah, I mean, I actually completely agree with you, Luke. I do get your point, Steve, but it's like Barboza Felder, I lost a ton of money on the Abu Dhabi card. And like that, rounds 2 and 3 of that fight were so close, and like I don't see how you could give them both to Felder, but I could see how you could score them 10-10. Like that's it just Anyway, on to the main event. It was Woodley and Burns. So I had this actually saved my night. I had one unit on Burns by decision at plus 550, which cashed for me. So it was a .09 unit loss tracked on the night. It was about a full unit with the kind of drunken plays I made untracked. But yeah, so I basically had that like a 30% possible outcome just because, and we saw it in the fight. Burns cracked him with some shots. Woodley's just he may not be very active and he may not be very good from a round winning perspective, but the guy's built out of iron. He's just he's very, very hard to finish. So yeah, I thought it was a nice play. See, you had cash here, right?
Yeah, I had Woodley at like 125. So yeah, terrible. I like it is terrible, and in like hindsight, like I kind of always knew like this is like just like an outcome that could happen, and I just like Woodley. I don't know. Yeah, like the guy just doesn't let his hands go, and like maybe back in the day, like I've seen somebody like talk about this about how like fighters, like when Woodley was coming up, were just like more one dimensional and just like not have this like super well rounded game, and like yeah, like maybe that is part of it, and like the other part of it is probably like Burns like probably has been evolving like in the sense of like his hands, like he did let his hands go and he does have quick, like his hands were pretty quick. But like, in terms of like durability wise, like, yeah, I mean, Woodley is like ultra durable. I mean, Burns had him on his back flattened out and like Woodley survived. Like he is like a, sound defensive grappler. I think most people, if I told you that like he was going to be full mounted, like they'd be like, yeah, that's an insta finish for Burns. But like on the topic of Burns, like I'm starting to think like maybe he really does have a legitimate shot at like dethroning like Usman. I don't think like I know a whole lot about like Burns's cardio, I guess in the sense because like Woodley was kind of just fucking being Woodley, standing against the cage and like literally doing nothing. So it's possible Burns doesn't have like this ultra cardio, but like in terms of like somebody who's just gonna like get into a war for you, like it's definitely Burns. And like I don't think like Usman's like invincible in terms of like striking wise. And like going to the mat, like even when you go to the mat, I mean, Burns like guy gives no fucks. Like even versus Maya, right? I mean, he doesn't care. And like he did have a nice double leg, and I guess like I'm on the side of like Burns being like an evolving fighter. Woodley is so I'm kind of like pissed that like I was gonna play Leon because I thought that like a perfect spot to like fade Woodley there because like I could just like super like trust Leon to like just be smart and just like he's just better. Whereas Burns, like I guess I wasn't super sold on like him like just not getting into like a fire exchange with him, but I think like one of the fights I guess I'd want to see if they're making Usman versus like Edwards, then like they got to give Burns like Kobe or like Masvidal, and honestly, I think Burns might just ruin Masvidal. But I would definitely love to see Burns versus Kobe or Usman. I'm starting to think that he's probably a problem for them. Even though like I still would say like Usman's going to be a favorite. Usman's just ultra fucking good. But
where did they say Usman and Edwards? Anything like that?
It's just Dana said the other day that
yeah,
one of like Burns, Covington, Edwards probably would be next for Usman or Masvidal.
I mean, I think what I would like to see if I had to do matchups, I would like to see Jorge and Kamaru Usman, and then Burns and Colby, and then Leon and Tyron.
Well, yeah. So let's Lags, give your thoughts on the fight, and then your perspective on a potential Burns Usman matchup. I'll do that.
That's fine. So similar to how C was starting the night, we're rolling, we're looking good. We got 2 Lambo parlays that need 1 leg cash each left. So the one has Burns KO or decision, and the other has Burns Woodley fight ending rounds 1 through 3. So I mean, I definitely think that it had its possibility in the first round, but that's what it is. I lost that one, but ended up cashing the second one with him grinding on decision. Fight out similar to what I thought. I mean, I thought that Tyron was just going to back up a little bit, accept the pressure of Burns, and then back up against the cage and just Woodley, kind of like what C said, just kind of Woodley and just be there. But yeah, I don't know. I expected the reason why I took the fight ending in rounds 1 to 3 in the other parlay though was I expected a little more life out of Tyron. I thought he was going to bring the fight a little more with all this extra training in Thailand and everything. But no, I just didn't. I don't think we're going to see any improvements from him at this point, and I think that he's going to be, shortly on his way out. But like we were just talking earlier, I think that I don't think that this should jump the Burns should jump to Usman. I think you could definitely make the case that he's definitely had the better competition, but I just don't think he's ready yet. I mean, I might be crazy to say that. I think that he's definitely live to win that fight against Usman, but I definitely would like to see him fight like a Colby Covington or maybe even Edwards himself.
Luke, opinions on the fight and on a potential Burns-Usman matchup and who you want to see fight for the title at welterweight?
So I was on the picking Woodley side. I was potentially considering a bet on him if he got below -150 at one point. But as the fight got closer and the odds just didn't really seep down there, like one thing I always talk about in terms of like betting is like, is this guy going to fight for your money? Like if like stuff doesn't go right or whatever, like is that guy going to like just blow everything and try his damnedest to get a W? And so I don't, from like a pre-analysis standpoint,
Price, for example.
What's that?
Nico Price, for example.
Yeah.
You're gonna fight for your money.
Yeah. So after I was picking Woodley, I thought Burns would get a little too reckless in some of those exchanges, and Woodley would be able to find that hand. But from a betting perspective, I pretty much talked myself out of it. Thank God. I was like, I just don't want to lay chalk on him here. And maybe if like, even if like at C, I know you hit him at -125. Obviously the fight was complete domination, but even at -125, I don't know if I'd say that's a terrible bet because I think there's like, I think Woodley was getting close to finding that hand at a few points. But I overall I was wrong on this one.
What do you think though of Burns as like, I guess like an evolving fight? Like he has like made like these improvements. Like he's definitely improving like fight to fight. Like I guess like where do you think he ranks like in the division, and like, what does he do to like a Kobe or Usman? Because essentially, they're kind of the same thing in my eyes. Masvidal, I honestly think like Burns versus Masvidal is a pretty good fight. That Burns like, I tend to think Burns like wins that fight, but
yeah, I agree with you there. C, I think Burns, for his game to have the most amount of success, like once again, this is hindsight 2020, so not trying to sound like a wise guy, but really where he's been able to have success if he's the one able to be the pressure fighter, the guy moving forward. But against a guy like Usman or a guy like Colby, I think those are both bad matchups for him personally, because those guys are not going to sit there and take the back foot against him, which I think is really one of the key components for Burns to succeed. But to C's point, I think he's probably, you could make the argument for one of the more improved fighters we've seen ever since the move to 170. He's looked great. His wrestling has improved exponentially. His hands look 10 times better. And obviously he has that BJJ background. So I don't know. I don't really get into the whole playing fantasy matchmaking personally. Just I know I'm shitting on this fans.
Come on, Luke. Come on.
I'm always
who do you want? Who do you want?
Come up with some random other fight. I'm like, I don't even just waste the brain power. I'm like, just give me whoever they're going to give them next.
You kind of saw this with Chiesa when he fought RDA. It's rarely the case when guys go up in weight. I think it's usually a bad mistake for most guys because they end up looking super undersized like an RDA. But like you saw with Chiesa, who still looks big for welterweight, Burns actually looked enormous in there. Like he looked like the bigger than Woodley. He looked like the guy who was, the natural 170, and Woodley did not, which I thought was fascinating. All of that said, though, like he could KO Usman, but like I'm looking at the numbers now, and like so that fight, like see, you touched on this a bit, but like Woodley didn't really make him work too hard, and like he only attempted 200 strikes from distance over 25 minutes. as opposed to like me just looking at Usman Colby, a 5-round stand-up war where they each attempted over 350 distance strikes. It's just like I just kind of feel like unless Burns got him out of there early, which like he could, but if he doesn't, like against either Colby or Usman, eventually, that volume's going to overwhelm him. And they're both proven commodities when it comes to cardio. So it's like, I kind of think they just take over. That said,
I'd say Usman though, like in that Kobe fight, like Kobe's doesn't, he's got pillow hands. Like Burns got some pop.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I also do think, like I actually don't. I saw people were kind of shitting on Woodley's takedown defense for getting taken down twice, and I actually thought his takedown defense was fine. If you look at the second round shot they takes him down with, it's a perfect reactive double. Like nobody is stuffing that takedown. If he catches Usman or Colby in similar position, they're going to the mat too in that situation. So it's like, and if he gets them down, they probably get up, but you never really know. He's good enough that he could submit you. Like Woodley's probably got better jiu-jitsu than Usman and Covington, to be honest. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. But anyway, Luke, do you want to give one more shout out? So real quick, so we're going to be doing the 250 pod Wednesday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So join us then. That'll be a lot of fun. Luke, before we sign off, you want to give one more shout out?
Yeah, just once again, real quick, guys, we're running a contest over on my Twitter with Squares and Sharps. They're a sports betting lifestyle brand that donates 1% of all of their profits to charity. They also have some MMA specific merchandise. So if you're a sports bettor in general, MMA bettor in general, they got some good stuff for you. You can just head over to my Twitter. That's at SWR_betting. My tweet is pinned to my profile, and you can see all the details for the contest there. If you win it, great, awesome. If not, you can still head over to their website. That's squaresandsharps.com. Use my promo code SWR2020 for 15% off your order and free shipping. They've got you covered for all your sports betting merch, guys.
All right, so thanks, guys. So tonight was with Luke, Lags, and C. Quinn will be joining the same group on Wednesday night, and so we'll see you guys then. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.
All right, see you guys then.
Later.